I have been joined by Kofi Asante, who's the chairman of the Ghana... Kofi Asare, who's the chairman of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being with us. And William Yitah, who is the NAT trustee for Accra West Metro. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thanks.
So we'll take a look at our first story, and I'm reading from page 4 of the Finder. It says, chaos, anger. Some persons, including a mother and her son, were yesterday morning rushed to the Ridge Hospital after they collapsed at the Black Star Square in their bid to continue the process of enrollment into the various secondary schools under the computerized school placement and selection system. A pregnant woman, who is the mother of one of the prospective students, also collapsed in the scramble. So according to the Finder, people as low as 3 to 10 in numbers face some sort of health issues because they were at the Black Star Square simply to figure out problems with actually getting into the schools that they want to be placed in. So with the new arrangement, students, they had to be placed in the self-placement module, right, which were for one, help students who have not been placed in any school, students who want to change their schools, and also students who want to change their residential status. So I'll start with you, Mr. Asare, on this one. What exactly is going on with this whole, picking a school? Why is the process so complex? And isn't technology supposed to make it easier for us?
Exactly. Good morning to your viewers. Yeah, technology should make things much easier. It actually must prefer solutions to challenges like this. Unfortunately, behind technology is a human factor. Behind technology is a policy factor. Mm-hmm. The challenge we are facing is as a result of poor planning and hasty execution of changes that the Ghana Education Service intended to bring into the placement system. When you have a situation where someone is able to do self-placement, to go to infanticide, and it tells you that everything is in a mess. Mm-hmm. If you understand self-placement very well, self-placement is after all the schools have been selected by those who qualified to, and then have been placed by the computer. Mm-hmm. Okay, after all is done, self-placement is more or less a mop-up. That after mopping up the system, these are the schools that are available that no one either chose, or people chose but did not go. Mm-hmm. It is impossible for you to find a vacancy in infanticide, for you to go and do self-placement. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. But people went there on Saturday, on Friday, that they have done self-placement in the school and that they have arrived with their staff. And when the Deputy Director General, Dr. Turner, was asked, once they are there, once they have been placed there, it means that yes, legitimately they have been placed there. Mm-hmm. But on Monday, the same person said, no, some people have tampered with the system. Mm-hmm. So the integrity of the system has been compromised. So people are sitting somewhere in their home somewhere, doing placements parallel to what the CSSPS is doing. That is why you're able to have self-placement for infanticide. That is the problem we have. The system's integrity has been compromised.
But isn't there a way we could have predicted and perhaps set up some roadblocks to ensure that we don't have these issues? Because we're talking about young people here. You're going into high school. There's absolutely no reason why you should be experiencing what they were experiencing yesterday.
Yeah, predicting this, from our sources at the CSSPS, we knew that there were going to be challenges because the software we are using now is more or less being piloted. Mm-hmm. It is still at birth. Yeah. Just 3 months ago, the software was installed. Mm-hmm. And so it is still at the primary stage. So the planning wasn't apt.
Was there anything wrong with the old software?
There was nothing wrong with the old software.
So why change something that's not wrong?
Well, so that's why I said behind technology is policy. So the policy maker decides that we want to adapt a new software, which obviously should aim at improving the system we have. fantastic. There's nothing wrong with it. But in changing or in migrating from the old to the new, you need to have a plan in place such that it doesn't compromise on the integrity of the assignment. We are talking about 450,000 students that you have to place. And so you need to plan ahead, test the software properly, and be sure about the capacity deficits, resolve them before it gets to the actual universal assignment. So we are struggling because the testing process was very, very short. And so the immediate cause, not the root cause, the immediate cause of this embarrassing situation we find ourselves, where the Independence Square is virtually a prayer camp. I was there yesterday night. It's virtually a prayer camp. The embarrassing situation was occasioned immediately by the loss of integrity in the software. People hacked into the system and they were doing their own placement from wherever they were. That has never happened in the past. And that's why I want to emphasize that. Apart from that, there are other remote courses. We have been running the free senior high school policy for about this is a third year. And it's pretty much one of the best policies being implemented in terms of the intention. Now, last year, for instance, about 50,000 students were placed, but did not enroll. Okay, placed but not enrolled, about 50K. This year, we expect that the number may increase, because as you increase the number placed, the number placed or the percentage placed, the number placed but not enrolled keeps increasing. It is normal. Because someone will say, okay, I want to go to a private school, I want to go to GIS, I want to go to Christian high school. That's possible. But you realize that the number we have there should have been reducing at a faster rate than it is, because it is now free. In 2016, it wasn't free. So we understood why we had about 20% of people placed not enrolling. But if it's free, afford it. Exactly. Okay. I mean, cost barrier was very, very, very significant in terms of the prohibiting factors. But now, if you have more than 10% still not going, responding to their placement, then it tells you that, one, we have vacancies in Ghana here. Yes, as the GS says, we have enough vacancies to take care of all the. It is true we have, but the vacancies we have are not the vacancies that the people or the students want.
Okay.
There's a vacancy in Gushegu Senior High School, which may be a day school, but you are in Accra or you are in Kumasi. So even though on paper we will have more vacancies, in reality, where the vacancy is doesn't make it realistic, because you cannot be a day student in Gushegu when you live in Kumasi or Accra. Okay. That's the challenge we are facing.
So let me bring in Mr. Yitah here. So just for the benefit of our viewers, let's go through the placement statistics. It says that the total number of vacancies that were declared from the schools were actually 520,298, and the total completed results were 512,083. Now, the issue with the qualified students of those were actually 473,728. We're talking about the self-placement, which is just about a little over 120,000, right? Is that where all this mess is about, the 120,000 people who had to go through the self-placement process. Let me talk to you about parents, teachers, and the students themselves, their responsibility in this. There's a teacher, there's a parent here who says, I'm going to quote him. His name is David Owusu. He's talking to the Finder. He says, "We live at Latte in the Eastern region, and for my son to be a day student in Wenchi Senior High School is certainly going to be a problem. Neither me nor my son even know where Wenchi is." Now, the GES boss yesterday was on Point of View, and he says 90% of the people who are there have been placed. Now, how is it possible that someone will be living, for instance, in the central region, and then he will be placed in a day school in Kumasi? Is it that the students didn't get the parents involved or teachers to do their due diligence? What exactly is going on with the process of applying for schools, that we have someone living in Accra going to a day school, or someone in the central region going to a day school in Kumasi?
Yeah, I will begin by saying good morning to your viewers. And I want to say that the CSSPS has become a homegrown monster that is currently devouring us. It has been with us over a decade, and we still cannot control this monster. And that is why we are where we are now. Parents complaining about their children being placed at distant places where they can't afford to take their children to is a bit strange in the 21st century, where ICT is supposed to facilitate our living conditions in such a way that we wouldn't have found ourselves in this situation. Because if a school is full in a particular place, the system will definitely shut that particular place up. Say that when you go to place, you will not get access to that particular. I don't know how they have designed that system, but what I know generally, if a school is full, you cannot self-place yourself there. And if you never chose a particular school, there's no way you should have been posted to that school. But I will blame this partially on the GES and the Minister of Education.
How so?
Why? Because over the years, they've nicodemously tried to eliminate the teacher factor in this placement system. The recent one, what they did was that they gave the children unique codes.
Yeah.
So the only thing that the teacher was supposed to do, or the role that the teacher was supposed to play, was to just make the course available for the parents to assist the child to select a school. Ask yourself, what does the parent know about the child that the teacher doesn't know? Some parents do not even know the academic standard of their children. They don't know the capabilities. They don't understand the system. They don't know that if you combine, say, history and geog, you will become this. They don't know that if you read maths and science, you become this. I mean, just by way of example. Now you tell this illiterate parent, or a parent who is ignorant about the system, to go and select a school for a child. Now, this child already is being influenced by the peer group. Why do I say this? Because the child has heard that the colleagues who are very good and excel in almost every subject are choosing acquaintance, they are choosing research, they are choosing agri, etc., achimota. Now, this child who is crawling behind and cannot even find his or her feet is also choosing those same schools that the brilliant ones are choosing. Now, these brilliant ones will come out with 06 for the Achimotas and the likes. You are going to begin from 38 and about 40 something. Do you think that Achimota, the Agris, and the likes will leave the 06 and come for 32 or 40 something? It is impossible. So it is because of the ill-informed nature of the system, where the parents don't understand the system that we are operating.
But isn't it the responsibility of the teacher to walk the students through this process? That, okay, if this is your grade, these are the schools you should be targeting to get into. Is that something that GES is supposed to initiate, or the teachers themselves are supposed to be proactive in the process?
Even before the exam, there should have been several counseling sessions with these children to let them know, even if they progress to the next level, what should they be reading? Should they just go and sit down? If you are choosing, say, business, why are you choosing business? Is it because I'm your friend and I'm choosing business that you also want? Is it because your mother is an accountant that you want to?
Did the teachers do this for the students from your assessment?
Yeah, we do, but at a limited level, because I, even though have read some amount of counseling to enable me pass my exams at college, I'm not a guidance and counseling coordinator. That is someone else's job at the various district offices. Some district offices do not even have enough of them. In some cases, you find only one. And there could even be cases where you may not find even one in a district. Now, the ideal thing would have been that every school should have a guidance and counseling coordinator whose job would have been to groom these children along that line. I've realized that you score 30, 40 in maths, you do this and that in this and that. Looking at things, I can see that you can grow to be good in X, Y, Z.
But in the absence of the guidance counselor, shouldn't the teachers have stepped in? Because you started by saying GES has excluded the teachers in this process. Shouldn't the teachers have taken a proactive role in saying, these are your scores, let's sit down. If the student wants to go to a certain school because his friend is there, advise them that this is the school you have a higher probability of getting into based on your grades.
Yeah, I'm saying that there's a clandestine move to eliminate the teacher factor in this whole thing.
How
which,
so?
Which is going to explode on our faces. Because I've already made you to understand that the parents do not know their children as much as the teacher, which you agree with me that yes.
From yesterday, the parents clearly know a lot, because for you to leave wherever region you're at to follow your child to enroll, you are definitely a very active parent.
No, you are concerned that your child needs to continue with his or her education. That is what makes the parent to move around searching for placement. But as to what exactly they want the child to become, even as to whether the intent of the parent will manifest in the child. Look, it is one thing dreaming that you want your child to become a doctor and your child actually having the ability to become a doctor.
What would it take to include teachers more in this process?
Yeah, so the system was formerly in the hands of the teachers. So when the parents come, the teachers will just sit them down and coach them. Oh, your child is very good in this and that, but lacking in this area. So looking at things, when the child progresses with this, it will affect the child. So for the good of all of us, let's let the child choose school ABC, which runs ABC programs which are favorable to that particular candidate. I don't know what they've seen about that system, and they are now using some tactics to eliminate the teacher factor.
Okay.
If there hadn't been a situation where teachers needed to provide codes to these parents to access the system, the teacher would have been almost eliminated from this.
Okay.
And that we are heading towards our doom, because the teacher can never be eliminated from this, because the teacher is a key factor in the education of a child in this country. The teacher knows very much. We know the children, we mark their scripts on daily basis. We even interact with them. We know what they do during extra curriculum. A child may not be academically good in the classroom, but may have other qualities that he or she exhibits outside the classroom. The teacher considers all this. There was a case when I was at the JSS then. We noticed that one particular child could not follow in the classroom, but was always, when it comes to drawing, could always draw very well. The child can just look at you and draw you like this. So when the child was about to drop, we rather advised the child to go to Macrosec or Macrosec. I've forgotten the exact. To read visual art. Okay. This child today is earning a living through that, and the child is no longer a school dropout. It is because the parents were involved, and it's because the teachers understood the circumstances.
So when it comes to the issue of students going to the wrong schools, you believe if GS had included teachers more in this process, we would have eliminated that issue?
Yes, and they also have to eliminate, this too much interference in the system. Because this protocol thing is also creating another problem for us.
How so?
If we should all play it at a playing level, no matter who you are, just make sure that you groom your child to the extent that that child can pass the exam and be placed in the school of his or her choice. There shouldn't be any hands behind the scene manipulating the system.
Okay, so Mr. Asare,
but you see, on the issue of the placement,
yes,
that you said, you see,
is it just a teacher issue?
Teachers will be involved, fine. I think that the continuous emphasis on children choosing schools without the consent of their parents, or parents being misguided in choosing schools, or children being placed in schools they did not choose. I think that issue is more or less a bit of a history. I'm being honest with you. Yeah, I think we've departed from that.
So how did a child in Central Region end up in a day school in Kumasi?
When you are choosing your school,
and he didn't pick that school,
you are now expected to select at least one day school in the region or something like that. And so you have instances where a child will choose, and listen very well, a child who lives in Accra will choose Wenchi Secondary School as the fourth choice, maybe. Okay? And then when you go to Wenchi Secondary School, they say, okay, we don't have any vacancy in our boarding system, so you have to be a day. When I was doing my free senior school research last year, I went to a school called St. John's in Takoradi. Secondary St. John's. There's a community behind St. John's called Adiembra and then Baka. I counted over 300 students who were living in the community. they were living in so-called hostels. They were living in single rooms, and then they were taking care of themselves. People who were barely 18. On paper, they chose St. John's, and on paper, we know St. John's. It's not a day school like WAS or Accra High. You understand? So, but when they got to St. John's told them, okay, fine, but we have limited spaces in our dormitories. And so the reality is that if you want to be in St. John's, they need to go and find accommodation in town. Similar issues happened when we went to Bushegu Junior High School. There are about 5 girls who had been impregnated by the community members because they were living in the community and they had come from the middle part of Ghana, Ashanti Bronafo. They came to Bushegu just because of the school. The school was a day school, but the school didn't have boarding facilities, so they had to stay in the community. And so it is not about choosing a school outside your region. It's about choosing a boarding school outside your region with the intention of becoming a border, only to get there and realize that there are no vacancies for borders. So the challenge we have, if you zero it down to the actual issue, you mentioned the data. You mentioned that there are 520,000 seats in classrooms, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
520,000 vacancies, okay? And then we have placed 351. So
the self-placement is just 120.
So effectively, we have 169,000 vacancies left, and only 112 self-placement to do.
22.
So if you have 122, which will be 169. Why should there be issues?
So I'll let you continue, but we have to go for a quick break.
Okay.
This is Breakfast Daily on City TV, and of course, if you have any questions for us, let us know with the hashtag Breakfast Daily, and the WhatsApp line is 0550-585-832. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on City TV. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, again, if you want us to hear what you're thinking, let us know with the hashtag Breakfast Daily, and the WhatsApp line is 0550-585-832. I still have with me Kofi Asare, who's the chairman of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, and William Yitah, who's he's a GNAT trustee from the Accra West Metro now. Mr. Asare,
I was making the point that we have about 190,000 vacancies in the schools. And we have to about 169,000, and we have to select only 112. So ordinarily, there shouldn't have been a problem, because the self-placement should have gone on smooth. Okay, so why are we having challenges? You are sharing 169,000 balls of kinky to 120,000 people, and then you can't share it.
Yeah.
The reason is that one, the location of the schools and the quality of the schools available does not appeal to the choice of the students.
Okay.
Don't forget that, yes, you are doing self-placement, but you still have a choice, you know? And this is where the private issue comes in. The case has been made, and we find some sense in it by the Ghana National Association of Private Schools that we have schools located in vantage areas, in the peri-urban areas, and also in the urban areas, which are where these people want to go. That's why they don't want to go to where this, because there are 169,000 schools that are available. If you know where they are, you understand what I'm talking about. There are schools no one wants to go there. Let's be honest. That's why they are there for self-placement. The private schools are saying that we have schools in the urban areas and schools in the peri-urban areas, which are attractive in terms of location and facilities-wise to these people who are supposed to go and do the self-placement. They are not doing the self-placement because they don't want to go. They don't want to be posted to let's say Maurice Senior High School, which is a day school, and then go and become a hosteless there. But they want to come to a school like Action Senior High School, which has a boarding facility. The private guys are saying that, government, we are ready to take the same amount of money you are paying as a capitation, or more or less as grants for per student under the free senior high school policy. We will take the same amount of money. So bring us some of the students and let's admit them. But the Ministry of Education says no.
Why?
Well, I don't know. But they say no. They say no. They don't want to invest in. There's a debate that you can't invest public resources in. But
even if we were sticking to the public schools, is there a way where if I'm applying online, I'll be able to tell if the capacity of the example you used in the secondary school, if they can only take 20 students as boarding schools, the boarding students, there's absolutely no reason why after they reach their maximum, I should still be able to apply as a boarding student and then get there to find out that that's not the reality, because these are minors, right? So at
the point of application, for instance, I mean, you were discussing earlier in the morning on City FM that Ajimota had 18,000 people applying, even though they have less than 1,000 vacancies. So at the point of application, there is totally no correlation between the demand and supply. It is totally incongruous.
So it's the point of the admission.
At the place, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So at the time when I'm doing my self-placement, the schools have already
declared
the
boarding
students who are
vacancies
coming.
and the day
Exactly.
vacancies.
That's why I'm going through my self-placement process.
Exactly.
So there should be a way I should be able to tell. The technology should be able to tell me if there's no more room, because if 100 people self-placed before
that's the
me,
point I'm making, that if the technology's integrity is compromised and someone could do self-placement for infanticide, then you should understand that everything is possible, because the security of the system was compromised for about 4 days. So everything happened within 4 days. You know what can happen? Because we don't know how they entered the system.
But you mentioned earlier about piloting, right?
Yeah,
and I want to also
yeah.
quote the former coordinator of the CS. Okay, I'm reading here from City Newsroom. It says, CSSPS placement troubles could have been avoided. It's coming from a former coordinator, and it says, former coordinator of the CSSPS, I'm talking about the Computerized School Selection Placement System, Dr. George Atabwating, has certain major changes, says that certain major changes within the system have contributed to the problems with student placement in senior high schools this year. So I'm going to quote him. He says here that there was an issue with the clear out of staff who had been trained in various data processing tasks over the last 13 years. I'm going to quote him. He says, as I speak to you today, with the exception of the secretary, all of them have been transferred. If you go to the secretariat now, we have new faces. It is only the secretary who is old. What factor does this play in? One, you mentioned you are piloting something. These are children, hundreds and thousands of them. Is this the time we should be transferring people, piloting things, knowing that we could face this issue? Is there a way we could have predicted this will happen, preempted it, so that the parents don't have to pass out, students don't have to pass out just because they are trying to get an education?
You see, unfortunately, that's how our public system works here. We have a public service system which is heavily riddled with politics. And, the average Ghanaian is a hypocrite. We know, we always want to scratch the problem on the surface when we really know that the problem is deep. Every other time we have regimes coming and changing key stuff in key institutions for no reason than political. It has become more or less a ritual. So we don't even talk about it again. That's why I'm saying we are hypocrites. Because when these changes are done, we don't complain. But when we begin to feel the outcomes of these changes, where people who are trained and have acquired some competencies beneficial to the state because the state has invested over time in them, we just sit down and watch it happen because maybe it pleases us politically. And then when we begin to see the ramifications of those actions, we start shouting. I am aware, because we work closely with the CSSPS, I'm aware that almost everybody there was moved in 2017. And a new team brought in. And it is this new team that actually made a case for a new software. You understand? And the new software was hurriedly procured at the 11th hour, at a time that wasn't convenient enough to allow for adequate engagement or testing. That's why we are here. It is true. You see, we need to begin to appreciate that in all decisions, Ghana must be supreme. If we don't change our attitude towards, if we don't change the drivers of policy decisions and continue to situate political interests above the national interest, or partisanship above national interest, we will always find ourselves in this situation.
Okay.
You know, so it is true. I agree that the massive changes that took place there 2 years ago, obviously will have a role to play. But of prime importance is the new software, which was hurriedly rushed through.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me get your closing remarks on this. How do we ensure that we are not talking about this same issue come next year?
I think the new system must be allowed to run behind the scenes for some time, for them to test run it and be sure that it will no longer create problems for us in future. If this system cannot be test run to ascertain,
let's go back to the old one.
Then we should better revert to the old one, where we know that at least it wasn't also perfect, but at least it appears that one was doing a little bit better than this. The frustration parents are going through with this young case is very, very serious. It's unfortunate that we found ourselves here now.
Okay.
Let me quickly put in that I think the government should have some discussion with the private school owners. It may not be prudent to government to fund private schools, but some of the owners are ready to make their schools government assisted. Okay, so government should absorb the schools, and then take over the infrastructure, and then fund the schools, because the infrastructure is there, and the schools are empty. You know, and the kids need schools in the peri-urban areas, especially in urban areas, to attend. And so the ministry should engage the private schools. Those who are ready to let their schools become government assisted, government should annex the schools and then put the kids in there and then fund them, instead of this availability of schools, but then location not being convenient to children. And you know, that's what's happening at Independence Square. I think that discussion will have to take place now, and then so that we avoid this unfortunate debacle next year.
Okay. Now, we will move on to the issue of the missing Takoradi girls. I'm reading from Daily Graphic, and it says, Takoradi missing girls dead. The skeletal remains of 4 persons retrieved from 2 places in Sekondi Takoradi in the Western region last August have proved to be those of the 4 Takoradi girls who went missing at various places in the Sekondi Takoradi metropolis between August 28th and December 28, 2018. Forensic and DNA tests conducted by the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service on the skeletal remains confirmed the identity of the girls. Now, confirming the results of the test yesterday, the IGP, Mr. James Opong Buenu, told a press conference that the families of the girls had already been informed. Now, the families are also calling for some people to be held accountable. So I'm reading from citynewsroom.com. It says, Takoradi girls' families demand resignation of CID boss, others over DNA results. The families of the Takoradi kidnapped girls are calling for the resignation of some top-ranking officials of the Ghana security apparatus after the missing girls were confirmed dead on Monday evening. The families are demanding the resignation of the CID boss, Mameya Tiwa Adodankwa, the Interior Minister, Ambrose Derry, and the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa. According to the spokesperson of the families, Mr. Michael Grant Hayford, they are suspecting a foul play on the part of the police following the release of the results confirming the DNA of the 4 kidnapped girls. I'm going to quote him briefly. He says, "We are not going to accept it. What the police are saying is totally bogus, and we are not going to accept it. If they are saying so, then it means that the CID boss, the Interior Minister, and the National Security Minister have to step down before we go mad. At this time, look at the time they are bringing the report. Don't you know that it can kill someone? Tomorrow morning, there will be a press conference, and after that, they will hear from us." So that's Michael Grant Hayford, who is the spokesperson of the families. So I'm going to start with you on this one, Mr. Asare. Have the police done right by this family in this whole 1 year issue of the girls being kidnapped? The first girl was kidnapped on July 28th. We didn't even know about that till recently when the 4 skeletons were found. Priscilla Blessing Bentum, 21 years old, kidnapped on August 17th, 2018. Woodlove Quason, 18 years old, kidnapped December 4th. Priscilla Kwache, 15, kidnapped on the 21st of December. And now the police is saying that they are dead. We know that a couple of months ago, the CID boss came out and said, we knew where the girls are. Now the families are saying someone has to be held accountable for this.
Yeah, I think it's a tragedy. I mean, a very, very, very huge tragedy that the results turned out positive, the DNA results. You know, it took about 3 months for any concrete action to be taken by the police towards investigating this matter. When the Canadian girls got missing in Kumasi or thereabouts, you know, the civil society reacted to how swift our police responded to that particular issue, and how quickly they were able to bring the perpetrators to book. And people attempted to compare it to the level of zeal and then the level of, you know, the efforts that they put in the case of the Tardy girls. Well, circumstances may have been different. We are told that this one was reported much earlier than the other one. But, I mean, there's no way you can convince me that the police were really interested in finding the whereabouts of the Tardy girls until the media picked it up and made it a big issue. It was then that we saw frantic, visible efforts by the police, by which time probably the guys would have done whatever they had to do. And so it's a very, very tragic situation. Law enforcement, you know, we need our institutions to work for us. What happened in Takoradi is not, to me, it's not an isolated issue. It is a reflection of how our public institutions see us. Our public institutions are not responsive to our needs. Our public institutions are not accountable to us, the citizenry. They are accountable to the political elites. They are not accountable to us. And so you have a huge accountability deficit in the delivery of public service, including security. What happens is that in many instances, these institutions believe that they are even doing us a favor. I mean, we know that there is scarcely a public institution in Ghana here where you walk in and have a service without having to influence someone. Scarcely one. And so our public accountability system is very weak. If our institutions appreciate the essence of public service and they value the essence of accountability, I think the approach towards things like this would have been different.
Okay, yeah. So Mr. Yitah, let me come here. The families are asking for the resignation, the CID boss, the Interior Minister, and of course the National Security Minister. Is it a bit of a stretch, or should we grant that?
That's a $1 million question. I will look at it from the angle that the public is losing trust and confidence in our security system. That is what is causing all this. We know that DNA tests globally is such that you can't dispute it. If it is a genuine DNA test, that is the only thing that can distinguish the traits between you and I. Yeah. So that one, if it was genuinely done, then you can't dispute it. But the circumstances leading to the DNA test is what is generating all these controversies. We know how the police move swiftly to capture those who attack their own. Like my elder brother said, in the case of the foreigners, they zoomed in immediately and captured the
one might say that that was a Canadian operation for Canadian citizens.
No, that isn't true. The thing is that by the time their dignitaries landed, the Ghana police had already zoomed in.
But they're also saying they
area.
reported it early.
Eh?
People are saying that one was reported earlier.
Yes, that might be a good case.
Although we are finding out that the first girl, her grandparents reported it the next day.
They also reported the next day.
It is true that when a case is reported early, it helps in quashing of this thing very early. But that notwithstanding, How did the police approach this issue before the media picked it up? You see the thing? Now, if you went and arrested someone somewhere, and months after you went back to the same place to pick scouts, how come that it didn't occur to you after arresting that person that you needed to conduct a search? I mean, just look at it. There are certain things that...
Almost a year, not even months, almost a year.
Well, yeah. So these are the things that make people doubt the police. And until they change their attitude towards civil society, until they train and retrain, they will never gain the confidence of the Ghanaian. And we will always call for heads to roll. So if people are now calling for the hierarchy to resign, actually, I will not say that they should resign based on the, what do you call it, the DNA test, because I understand what DNA is. But I know people are calling for heads to roll because of the circumstances leading to this thing. If a whole CID boss can also come and then mislead the masses, then where are we? You see that?
But she said she was trying to help.
You can douse the fire without necessarily saying those things. Because you are a security expert, and whatever you say holds water. I, as an ordinary person, can just come on a Zoom and say something. And then people will take it out. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But you, that is your task. You are the boss. You are not even just an ordinary member of that group. So for you to come and say that you know where they are, and there have been some cock and bull stories here and there. They trace the people to this place. The way they tackle the main suspect, Krapo, created a lot of problems for them. Because this is a suspect. You go arrest this person can escape from lawful custody. It takes you days to rearrest the same person. After rearresting this person, it still doesn't occur to you that you have to conduct any search.
Any forensic search within the
person's premises. No, you search, the person misled you to Nigeria, to Togo, to many places. It never occurred to you that, no, you have to come back home and search. Until the media kept on lambasting them every day before they realized that they needed to go back there and conduct a search. And for the first time, they just got there and the scouts surfaced and then they had to pick them up. And that is why we have an issue with it. But I will say, resignation is not our culture. We can introduce it, but it doesn't seem to be.
Well, she also came out a couple of, was it a month ago or so, to say that she actually can't resign, right? So she was appointed. Someone has to initiate that process of transferring her if they're not satisfied with her work. But what she categorically said was, we know where the girls are. So I'm talking about the Director General of the CID, Mami Tiwa Adodankwa. What kind of trauma should we associate with this as far as the families being hopeful that someone as important as a CID boss is saying, we know where the girls are, and to now be told that the skulls that were discovered were the girls?
The families have gone through a lot. They've gone through a lot, not just because their daughters are no more, but because they've been toyed with. We've actually played with them for a long time, giving conflicting accounts of the status quo, and then giving them false hopes. And in most instances, they actually were hearing about the status quo on air. It was until recently that a formal and more convenient communication channel was established between the police administration and then the families. And so the families have gone through a lot. I wouldn't say I would have expected, but I hope that the police administration made an intervention to work around their psyche ahead of the release of the information of the DNA report. I hope that some form of counseling would have taken place prior to that to prepare their minds for that. Unfortunately, it has happened. There's nothing we can do about it. It has affected, and it will continue to affect the level of trust the public will have in the police service. Already, we have issues with public perception and public trust in the police, and so such issues only come to deepen the extent of the mistrust between the public and then the police, even though the police institution exists to protect us. That is why I mentioned that people who work for public service do not understand the meaning of public service. Until the people who work for the public service, people who are paid by the taxpayer, appreciate that they are supposed to provide service for the citizens and not just the political elite, we will never get an accountable public system. We need to begin to instill that sense of accountability. And until you have carrots and sticks working, until you have reward for good jobs and you have punishment for negligent behaviors like we are discussing, you can never instill accountability. A report was made in a local police station in the area there. What happened? To what extent were the officers there negligent in respect of their own SOPs? And then to what extent were they up and doing? We need to find out from there and begin to let the carrot and stick regime work. If we don't have reward for good job and you don't have punishment for negligent behaviors instilled in our public service, we will never, ever have an accountable public service. We won't. And so it is always difficult to punish people who are negligent or people who are actually act offensively, you know. It is difficult. The Ghanaian is not used in punishing, their own. But that is the only way we can make our public service. Not only that's why I don't want to limit it to the police service, because what happened is just a reflection of how our public institutions respond to our needs as citizens.
Okay. So we have some messages from you that I want to read briefly. It says, my name is Bolex1 from Ashaman. My sister named Georgina Bordu checked her school in which she was placed, and it was Takwa Girls Senior High. But we went for forms and we found out that her name is not part of the admitted students of the school. Wolanyo Nakwetia says, I wished the police could have found a very nice way to break the news to the families, but flying them to Accra, lodging them in a beautiful hotel, and employing a clinical psychologist to break the news to them. Diversional therapy with some form of evidence. At least the police should have known that this missing Takoradi girls case has become a national issue. May their humble souls rest in peace. If there is really reincarnation, please don't come back to Africa, because our leaders don't care about the lives of our poor. But if you still want to come to Ghana, come as a rich man or a politician's daughter. So that's coming from Molanyo Naketia. Farouk from Tema says, oh, what a sad news. We sympathize with the affected Takoradi girls' family. Our police must work hard to win our trust back, because without trust and information, the police-citizen relationship is as useless. Okay, I'm not going to continue the rest. Farouk from Tema. Good morning. The CID boss should do the honorable thing by resigning to pave way for competent persons to do the job from Equal in Takoradi. So I'll give you the last bite here. How do we ensure that, as Mr. Asare said, our security agencies serve the interest of the citizens and not our leaders, and also hold our leaders accountable when they fail us?
The security services must be divorced from all manner of politics. They should be a little bit independent in a way, so that they can think independently and do things independently. Until we reach that stage, they will continue to try to serve their paymasters, and we will continue to find ourselves in where we are now. The police, because they rely on their master for everything, and the others come from, we still even have the master as the head of the police council. Until we change the structure, we will never get anywhere, and these things will continue to haunt us day in, day out.
Thank you so much, William. Yitah is NAT trustee for Accra West Metro. We found out this time, so I didn't want you to take a bite, but if you have any last.
Well, I wish the guy who, the accused person, the alleged murderer, would have been hanged or shot by firing squad.
Wow. Okay.
after being convicted. But unfortunately, we've not been seeing death warrants being signed by our presidents in the past 2 decades. The level of sophistication of crime in this country is beginning to let me think that
certain heights.
we cannot afford as a state to feed such people forever and put them in life imprisonment in the Sawan, but feed them every day.
Thank you.
I think that is too much of
a burden.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Kofi Asante is the chairman of the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. And thank you at home for staying with us throughout the news review. Do not go anywhere. Up next, we'll be talking to Dr. Kelvin Owusu. We'll be right back. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The City Tube.
For exclusive Breakfast Daily content and other City TV programs.
Like, comment, and share with your friends.